Welcome to Talk to Me with Liv Harrison, the stories behind their success. The high school I went to in Houston really could have been known as a performing arts school. So many talented, crazy talented people came out of this high school. In fact, when I talk about it, often either A, people don't believe me, or B, people are like, oh, so you went to a performing arts school. And I'm like, nope, just a normal public school with just ridiculously talented people. A lot of them have gone on to become very famous. Many of them have already agreed to being guests on this podcast because they are truly inspiring and have some amazing stories to tell. What's fun is we are really close. Like my high school, like all the kids. Not every single kid, I know, I get it. But the vast majority of us were very close in school and have continued to stay that way. We grew up together. We all liked each other. And a lot of us are cheering each other on, which is really beautiful. What was great was we didn't really care about the ages we all were or the grades we were all in. I actually was supposed to be in the grade below me because I had started school in Louisiana and I went to kindergarten at 4. Not because I was a genius, 100% because of when my birthday fell. And that year, you were allowed to go to school if you were that young. I don't know what else to say. My birthday is October 1st, and the cutoff was December 1st. So I made it. The grade below me in high school, I really clicked with. And I don't think it's because we were so close in age. It's not like it was that close. But we really did. We got along. And I had a cousin who was in that grade, and he and I are only 9 months apart. And growing up, we were actually super close. I'm the godmother to his oldest child, and he has 5 kids. And he's one of 11. So that's how close we were. He played football. He played in the marching band. Now, that was funny. He would be in his uniform, his football uniform, and then marching with the band and then going out and kicking behind. He went on to play for Notre Dame. Crazy successful, incredible guy. And we shared a lot of the same friends, especially the same guy friends. My guy friends from junior high became his best friends in high school. Oh my gosh, we had so much fun. These guys were amazing. We would end up at people's houses singing till, 3 in. We would play sports, basketball. Okay, I would watch. Let's be really honest. I had no purpose but to cheer them on. But one thing they would do is this group of guys would make films in my backyard. Out of all of us, I was the only one with a pool. So these guys would call me and be like, hey, Liv, can we come over and make movies in your backyard? And I was like, yes, of course. So they would come over and make film at my house, which I am dying to see because one of these guys is actually crazy famous now. And we're friends, and he is one of my favorites. But this particular day that I'm thinking of was hilarious. They were, I think, making a film an homage to Jaws. I don't know. I wasn't allowed to watch Jaws. But they had the brilliant idea and I just want to pause and say, these guys all did go on to college. So even though this wasn't their brightest moment, this is not how they got into school. They took a piece of construction paper, not cardboard, not wood, actual construction paper, and made a fin out of it. They cut, like a shark fin. You know what I mean? Like that triangle situation. One of them jumped in and the other one jumped in. And one guy was filming. I don't know what all the guys were doing, but 2 were in the pool. One was being chased by the guy holding the shark fin. Here's what I want you to do really quickly. I want you to close your eyes and imagine these 16-year-old guys making a film, which this meant you had to use actual cameras, you guys, with tapes, who remembers this? But think about what a piece of construction paper is going to do in a pool of water. as in like an actual swimming pool of water. They didn't think it through. This was the worst idea. Talk about a non-scary shark. The fin flopped. It was horrible. So not scary. Oh my gosh. When I say we laughed so hard. And to be really honest, I can't even remember how that whole thing ended up. I'm sure they figured it out. I'm sure the film was a tremendous success. But what's great is a couple of these guys went on into acting. They actually were really big into theater at our school. I was really into it in junior high and with this group of guys. And they continued on and they've continued their acting careers, which is really cool. My guest today does voiceover work. He's an MC, especially for Southwest Airlines. I get to see him it seems like once a year. He does all sorts of community theater and acting. He's had national commercials. And he also, which I think is really beautiful, is a pastor at his church. He has a gorgeous wife. They're both authors. They have beautiful sons. And he just happens to be one of my favorite people in the world and always has been. Well, hello, Markus. How are you, friend?
What's happening, Liv? Good to see you, girl. Good to see you. Looking good, girl. Looking good. Glad to be here.
No, I'm thinking you look incredible. And I'm so sad. I'm so sad that it's been a year since I've actually seen you in real life.
That's right.
And I'm grateful because before that, it had been 30,000 years. I don't know. It was forever. I'm not good at math.
20 or I don't know, 15.
Oh, yeah, Markus.
A long time. But again, we have a friendship that it doesn't matter how long. It's like you jump back in and it's like you're back where you were. You know what I mean? Obviously,
right there.
We're a little older and better, but we're still back where we were.
Amen. Amen that we're better. I don't know if we would still be friends with our teenage selves. But
I don't know. I don't think you've changed that much, honestly. And I say
I get that a lot.
With much love. I don't think you had a lot of growing up to do. You know what I mean? So I think some people just, hit it early and you make friends because of the way they are. And you can keep being friends because they consistently are the same person as they grow up. And I think that's you for sure.
Sure. Markus, you are so kind. Thank you. Well, I would say the same, except you have gone on to do incredible things with your life. And watching, what I love about social media is that I've gotten to watch it. I am best friends with your wife. She doesn't know this. Neither do you. Your children, I think I have a birthday party for them every year and eat cake in their honor.
Nice.
It's been fantastic to watch all the things. So let's pick up where we left off. We were great friends in junior high and high school.
Right.
And then we went on with life. Where did you go? What happened to you? And you're start with day one. No, but where did you go? What did you do in school? What did you get? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, man, after I left high school, went on to Texas Christian University. That's what we called it back then. It's just TCU now. They decided Christian should be taken out of the name, so don't even.
We don't want anyone to know.
We don't want anybody to say that, and for good reason. I was there, so I went to TCU. I started out as a music major. Went out there to do vocal performance, and then
I remember that.
And got kind of scooped up by the theater and TV department, and they created this whole weird major for me that had kind of music, theater, and television kind of all wrapped into one thing. And so did that. And, God was good. I started working professionally. When I had to, TCU's not cheap. The private schools are not cheap. And the brother had to find a way to pay for it.
They like their money.
Yeah, they like their money, So I had to find a way to pay for it. So I was doing, working at Jay Riggins and doing professional shows, you know what I mean, right out of the gate, at 19. I started working professionally and in the entertainment world, and thought I was gonna kind of go to not get married, go to LA, become this super famous person. I was gonna be the next Oprah, but the male version. And
yes. Oh, you would have been a good male Oprah. I
you
would
know,
have. It's okay. It's okay.
it's okay. It's still, look, I still got time. I feel like I can still do it
That's right.
if I need to. It's time. But I ran into an amazing young lady doing the show Guys and Dolls at the Dallas Theater Center, and God was like, "Look, you're not gonna get this chance again." So snatched it up, and we got married, and then we were both in the entertainment world. So we went to Los Angeles and started hitting it out there, and starting to make some good, you know, runs, and kind of the career. But then we kind of looked around at all of our friends who were kind of making it, and we started trying to decide, is this what God wants us to do? Is this the life that God is moving us toward? And quickly became to understand that we wanted something else. So um, ended up through a couple of different things, moving back to Dallas to kind of get into ministry. And my wife got a job at a church as a creative producer for children's production that they did weekly. I came back, worked in Dallas for a little bit to try to make some money so I could try to go to seminary. And then I got picked up by a church. We both moved to that church. Then we got picked up by another church, and then I got picked up by another church. And now I'm here, working at a church as a director of external focus, which is basically an outreach pastor. My wife is a writer and a speaker and a fitness instructor, a property manager. She's got a million things. And I get to lead an organization around racial reconciliation and justice, and organize, food pantry coalitions and all kinds of different things, and still get to do a lot of my acting and work on the side. So, yeah, that's kind of what happened to me. And then I get the best kind of call from you to be on your show. So that's really the pinnacle of all my days over the last 20
You're
years.
Hitting the height.
I'm peaking. This is my peak today. I need to write it down. I hope you're recording this. We'll keep that.
I am. Oh, absolutely. I am. So when you get your award, I love it. I tell you what, the greatest thing is that when we were in school together, you made me laugh then and you make me laugh now. And I love that you haven't lost that at all. I love the part of your story where you were making decisions. I think that that's a lot of things that maybe our teenage selves, I don't know, I'll talk about myself. Maybe, and I'm saying it to myself now, my obvious 22-year-old self, because that's obviously what I am.
You're doing better than me. Like I'm still 18. Like you got to 22. It's true.
Man.
Girls mature faster. It's the way it is. So
I'm a good moisturizer. The thing is that I love that you, at such a young age, which I want to ask you how old you were when you did make that decision in LA with your beautiful wife, which I don't blame you for being smitten with her. Is that you had more of a choice and a say in where your life was going than maybe, when you're that young and you think, oh, I'm just floating along. I'm just in the ocean and, out doing all the things. How old were you when you made that decision? And do you remember getting that concept of, wait a second, hold on, we're adults. We can make some choices here. We have a little bit of ownership.
Yeah, it's a strange deal, right? Because when you and I still do it today. Like I still wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can make my own decisions. It still feels weird to do, but I remember being out in LA. I mean, it was although we were starting to do well, it was tough sledding. I mean, we were working. I was working 3 jobs. My wife was working 2, and I remember I'd wake up in the morning and just be so thrilled to see her laying there, because it made me just realize that you had a partner in the midst of it, right? But as we, again, started kind of living our life and thinking about how we were maneuvering and some of the roles that were coming in front of us, when you're living in the LA life, there's so much fakeness there, right? There's so much falseness. Like you couldn't trust who your friends were, right? Our best friends actually were people who were not involved in the industry. That's kind of what you said out there, like if you're in the industry. And even them, we couldn't fully trust because we couldn't understand why you would live in LA and not be in the industry. It's like the most expensive place
What are
in the
you
world.
doing?
So, what are you doing? So we love them dearly.
There are other jobs?
Maybe they may have mental illness that we don't know about. Why are they here, right? So
why would you choose to be here?
Yeah, but we love them because we never questioned whether they were spending time with us to get to our connections, or or whether we had to feel like we needed to spend time with them because we needed their connections. And so That, and then just, I guess, the entitledness of everything. Again, LA was very
Oh,
encapsulated. People
interesting.
felt entitled to everything, and were passionate about nothing.
Oh, that's interesting. Entitled to everything, but passionate about nothing. Is
Yeah,
that what?
yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
if the passion came, it was kind of how did it benefit them and move their career along. And that's a lot of places, and it's a lot of the way we work, even in America right now. The realization to me too was I knew that whenever I stepped in an audition room, that there could be potentially obstacles from me getting the role, and that there were things that I was not going to do. There were roles I was not going to take. There were
Oh,
things in the role I
right.
was not going to do. Like I just didn't want that, and I knew that there were a myriad of other actors out there that when they walked into the room, there were no holds barred, right? Like they would do
They
whatever.
do it all.
They do it
Yeah,
all. It wouldn't matter. And
right.
so, you felt an extreme disadvantage in some ways, and again, a sadness that was there. So those are some things. And again, in my younger self, I probably would have, thought through it even a little bit differently in some ways. But I really did feel, as we were kind of praying, I think we spent some time. We usually, when we make big decisions, we spend some time fasting. And so I think in the midst of the fasting, we just heard God saying that He desired us to be creative and use our gifts, but to use them in a way that we're going to further His kingdom, further the church, and those kinds of things. And that's kind of what vaulted us in some ways, even back to Dallas and even into the ministry world is through the creative realm. And it was the pathway that led us into ministry. I don't think I would have got if it wasn't for utilizing my creative gifts when I got into ministry. If you had told me when I was sitting in LA, like, hey, you're going to be an outreach pastor and be getting a master's degree in intercultural studies, it'd be like, who? That's that other character. That must be my
Yeah.
my other
Is that
character
what I'm auditioning
someplace.
for?
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Is that a movie I'm doing, right? Like, so,
Sure, I'm in.
yeah, I'm in. That sounds great. Just give me the script because I don't know how I need time to work into this character because he's nothing like me, right? So,
Wow.
yeah, so I don't know. Maybe that.
Incredible. No, I love that. So let me ask you, when you met your wife, her name is Lisa,
Yep,
correct? Okay.
correct.
So when you
You're
met
the one
Lisa,
stalking her. You know her
I
name.
mean,
I mean, like,
I was trying to act cool
I want to
and
be
not like,
professional.
like it's
Why
not
don't you
in
just
neon
tell? You
letters
know her middle
behind
name
me.
too. Like, just give me a come on. Like, just do the whole thing. She was
Thanks,
born on
Marcus,
April
for
9th.
totally call me out. It's just like school. So
And
anyway,
Chase.
back to Lisa, is it? Back to Lisa.
Nice.
Thank you. I was in theater as well. So back to Lisa.
Yeah.
When you met her, was her faith just as strong as yours? Was your faith super strong? Where were you guys at individually
Yeah.
when you were brought together as a couple? Was that something that you just started off with? You were like, oh my gosh, she's hot and brilliant and amazing and talented and a super Christian. Or was that something that had to develop? What did that look like?
That's actually the pinnacle piece of the entire story. Yes, it did start it out. She's hot, she's brilliant, and she's talented. I mean, all that, that's what you get when you first start, right? Like I remember sitting in
Sure.
the rehearsal hall when we're all kind of meeting each other. We had to do this weird thing where everybody kind of had to get up in the middle of the circle and kind of introduce yourself and all this kind of stuff. And she gets up and, she's obviously gorgeous and wonderful. But she's very much like the sorority girl type, and you're just
Yeah.
like, she's staring at me right now. Like, what is this story you're telling? It's the one I tell all the time, babe. It's the same one. Sorority type girl. I thought, oh, she's one of those kind of girls, right? And honestly, in that part of my life, she was white, right? So it although you can kind of look, it wasn't I had kind of moved past that in some ways. I was digging a little deep, blackness at that point, and actually coming out of that a little bit and kind of getting into the space. And so I'm seeing her as this not only a sorority girl and beautiful, but she's white. So there's a sense of she's not for me in some ways.
You paused. You paused because of her color.
Yeah, because you're like, is this worth it? Because it's work.
Yeah,
right.
That's a lot.
The pinnacle of the story, though, is we started to get to know one another. She was not really dealing with this brother for a little bit, just because she was very much had these standards of standoff. She wanted a really good Christian man, that kind of stuff. And she's in a theater, so that's hard to find. And so I'm kind of
That's
talking
hard to
to her,
come by.
right?
That's,
You know,
yeah.
so, and so she's kind of like, I don't know. And somehow I think I can't remember this piece. I got to figure this out, but I think her roommate knew somebody who knew me in high school. And so when she mentioned my name, she's like, "Oh, I've heard of that guy because of blah 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 in high school, right?" And
Right,
so she
right.
was like, "What?" And so she got this sense that I was, this Christian guy, and then kind of see how I was maneuvering, I guess, through the. This is her story. This is maneuvering kind of through rehearsal. It was a long rehearsal period. It was like 10, 12 weeks or something. So we had time. And then, so we started talking and hanging out a little bit. And then we had a friend that was in the show, a friend of mine from TCU, and she was married, and but she was in the show, and she was going to TCU with me. But she was in a dressing room with Lisa, and so I would go in there periodically to talk to my friend. Her name was Anne, and so I talked to her. Lisa would be in there sometimes, but I remember one time coming in there, Lisa was not in there. I was talking to Anne. I looked over on Lisa's dressing table, and she had her Bible like open. Her Bible had been opened up, and it was like see how this is all worn out, like
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like highlighted and all these kinds of things.
It was very
Earmarked.
loved. It was a
It was
loved
loved.
Bible.
It was a loved
Loved.
Bible. And look, I tell people all the time because she's exceptionally beautiful. So, well, of course, you were interested. She's exceptionally beautiful, but it's hard for people to understand. In the entertainment world, you run into beautiful women all the time, at least by the
That's
society
shocking.
standards, right? Like shocking,
Right.
really?
What?
But
hot people are in the entertainment world?
So weird, right?
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah. So
right.
we're surrounded by them all the time.
Right.
So
dime a dozen.
yeah. Although she's beautiful, it was that showed that there was something more and something exceptionally beautiful. And I remember telling my friend Ann, I was like, oh my gosh. Lisa was kind of dating somebody at the time. I said, if this girl breaks up with that dude, you need to let a brother know, right? Let me know. And so so it was very much her love of Jesus that kind of drew me to her.
Wow.
Seriously. Yeah.
That's amazing. So did you guys start off praying as a couple? Is that something that you were already comfortable doing?
Yeah.
That wasn't something that was weird or foreign to like figure out? Because I know a lot of couples, they don't pray together.
Sure.
Even if they are faithful and they find that. But I know that that's something that you two share.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure that was a little rare in LA. Hey guys, we got to go pray.
Well, yeah. I mean, definitely like sitting at restaurants and, bowing your head in LA.
Right.
Yeah. Here's what I would say is praying was a practice that both of us had. So coming together, there was no issue because we were just like extending our own practice into our own relationship. So whether it was, praying when times were, I'll do it this way, whether it was praying at meals, which I think is very simple for a lot of people to do. We were doing that ourselves. And so it only makes sense to do it together. Whether it was praying before we went to bed at night, that was easy because we were doing that ourselves. And so we can do it together. The thing that we continue to work on is praying in the midst of good and bad times, right? In those extra places where we would pray alone, but it wasn't like a rhythm. Those are the things that we have to continue to work on. And so when times are tough, it's really easy for us to stop and to pray. Sometimes it's easier for one of us than the other. And we kind of lift one another up depending. And then at night now with our boys, because again, we begin the practice of going to God, all kinds of different things. We'll pray with them at night before. That's a family kind of tradition ritual that we do every night. And then, she's really great about inspiring them to pray for like little things, different stuff that I always get on her. I'm like, gosh, this feels so stupid to pray about, babe. She's really great at pushing me. She'll pray for parking spaces, right? Like she's praying for parking spaces and she gets them. And I tell her, I said, look, now she's super fit, right? She's a fitness instructor. So she doesn't need to park far away. And so God gives her close parking spots. With me, I pray for a parking spot and God is like, you're going to be in the back, bro, because this may be the only exercise you do today. So this is for your own good. So God answers.
He knows you. He cares.
He cares. He knows, right? So, but just little things, So if the boys lose something, she's like, they're like, I'm looking for something. I've lost something. Have you prayed about it, right? So, yeah, it's been definitely something that's been a part of our life and something we've also had to grow in as well.
Sure, of course. So, okay, what you're doing today, though, is really interesting, and you're finding yourself having some pretty intense conversations. And this isn't necessarily what I was going to talk to you about, but I don't understand how to have conversations at this point without talking about race
Yeah,
and what's
sure.
going on in this country. And I think it's really amazing to step into that space, especially with people that you trust and that you know are on the same side and wanting the same things,
Yeah.
and discuss those things. What I would love is for you to educate me on what is it that you do in Dallas? What is it that you're doing that's making a difference? Because I see you having these incredible conversations about race and doing these things for your community and for me, like all the community that's watching you on social media. So, what is that, Marcus? How did you get into this space and what are you doing? If you don't mind explaining it to me.
Yeah, I think I love that you said making a difference. I hope a difference. I don't
You
know.
are.
Uh,
You
but
are.
but we about I guess it's almost 6 years ago once the Michael Brown shootings happened. A couple of church leaders kind of contacted me and they wanted to talk about the situation. They and wanted to try to understand. And so we sat down and we chatted to understand each other's perspective. And it really led to a monthly like gathering of several pastors and leaders in the community that were of all different nationalities and races, if you will, um, to have discussions. And we worked through a book together and started doing that. And as that grew, it grew into almost like a new tribe of folks, a new group of people that kind of stayed and did it regularly. And then in 2016, when we had the Dallas shootings here of the police officers, we decided it was time to bring the camaraderie that we had experienced and the love that we experienced to the public so that they could try to experience it themselves. And so we started an organization called Threaded, and the mission is to inspire relationships, reconciliation, and collaborative action among the diverse body of Christ. And so what we found is, or what we talk about is, there are issues in race that are going on. We believe that the gospel has the answer to that, but part of what we were seeing as the problem is that the church wasn't living into its opportunity to show what a truly reconciled world looks like. We have the vision of what that looks like. God has shown us that that's part of His work, but the church has been culpable and complicit in much of the racism that we see, and has very little relevance to be able to talk about it because we still live in segregated homes and segregated communities as the body of Christ. And so we just started with that, just trying to help with, we do lots of panel discussions, created a curriculum for small groups. We speak out against the things that we feel are injustice that are going on. We try to build relationships amongst the churches and do collaborative action in the community around those who are experiencing systemic oppression. And so, yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. And that's led me into all kinds of learning and conversations. And of course, when you start talking about these things, the division and the spirit and the evil spirit that's underneath all of that division rears its ugly head over and over again. And so what that's actually forced me into as a place is to learn how to have conversations in ways that I'm hoping are transformative instead of divisive. So there's a great author and leader right now called Ibram X. Kendi that has a book he recently wrote called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And in the book, he talks about the difference between protest and demonstration, and the idea of protest and really being radical is really what he's talking about. You can say, people say radical things, what they think are radical when they're kind of speaking up and saying, you're this, you're terrible this, you're an idiot, whatever. And they think they're being radical for injustice. They're trying to speak out radically against it. But one of the things he comments and says, what would it look like if we thought of radical conversations as different, right? Like, what if the radical thing was that you can say things in such a way as to transform those people who are maybe on the line, to transform their mind in such a way that they come to your side? What if that was the radical thing? And so that's where, me and my team have really been trying to work to see how we can, you see me on social media, how we can deal with, in some ways, the ignorant, haters, the uninformed in such a way that loves them, and hopefully says it in such a way that doesn't push them back to the narrative that the divisive narrative them away, but pushes them into more of a unity narrative that we have. So I hope that explains some of it anyway.
Oh, are you kidding? I'm like, I think I just ordered everything you just said. I have a lot of work to do. Just
And that's
start a
part.
small group.
Well, and look, and that's part of it too. Like there's education there, right? Like part of it,
Yeah, there
you know,
is.
when you watch all the things that are happening, particularly when I'm watching people on social media interact, I think I'm just continually reminded of the lack of education that people have around this issue,
It's incredible.
and the lack of a common history around this issue. And so people are reacting and saying things in some ways in opposition to some of the things I'm saying, and they don't know that say those things. They are actually, and I'm going to actually post this later, in my thread later. They're actually high-fiving people in history that they would be appalled to support. The verbiage, the verbiage and the cliches that they're using. You can go back in different parts of history, and you can find people on opposite sides of the narrative. And the people that are saying the very same things that these folks are saying to me are the ones who are, you know, who are proponents to keep slavery going and the ones to keep segregation, and they're mouthing those same words, and they don't even know it because they have
They
no
don't know.
understanding of history. And I feel for them. Like I don't want them to wake up in 10 years and look at themselves and go, what was I thinking? I don't want them to be the one that their kids 20 years from now go, did you say this? Was this what you were about when this was all going on? I don't want that for them, because we do that now with Americans in the history. We go, I can't believe they were supporting that. And at the same time, we're doing the same thing right now. So I
That's
want
a
people
really good
to,
point.
yeah, I don't want people to have to wake up like that. And obviously, I want change. I think when we
Yeah.
all get a common history, we can make changes that keep the history from happening again. And
No, that's
unfortunately,
so
we're seeing
true.
all that
Yeah.
happen again right now.
We are, because I don't know when people are listening, but
Yeah,
George Floyd was just murdered. And so we're dealing with that as a country, and it has been, as you and I were talking about earlier, it's been interesting to see who's speaking and who isn't speaking,
right.
and what people are saying and where people are hiding, or how people are reacting. So, and here's the thing, Marcus. And I hope this really was Will Smith who said that, because it's getting to a point where you don't know what's happening on the internet. But there's a great quote right now that is floating around with Will Smith's name. And it says something like, oh, great, now I'm going to misquote it. But it's very simple, but it's something like, racism isn't new, or racism isn't just happening, it's just getting filmed.
Yeah,
It's something
yeah,
along those lines. This isn't new. When you and I were in school together, racism wasn't new. I'm
right.
going to go out on a limb, because we grew up in a very entitled, very um white area.
Yeah,
Some of us still live here. Our school, you I feel like, and I'm going to ask you this, and I hope this is not offensive,
no,
but in a lot of teenage films, there's one especially, all those great teenage movies that come out, and then they did one that was like making fun of the teenage movies, and it's like a
sure.
spoof.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
the one guy comes out and he goes, "Hey everybody, I'm the token black guy," and like
yeah.
that was his line in the film. And I have to be honest, I thought of you, Marcus, because I
Sure.
thought of you and saying like, wow. And not just you, but there was not a very large Black community in our school. I was always hanging out because I thought that we were all best friends, and I think I was getting made fun of actually more than anything. I think they were like, pat, pat, pat on the head. White girl. I really do. I think I was like, oh, Liv, she's so ridiculous. But anyway, how how did that happen for you to transition from where you grew up with us in this community that, let's be really honest, I think is super blind and really unaware? When you grow up with privilege, and not just in a white privilege way, but in a wealthy way, like this area of town, and I'm going to go with Dallas, isn't quite, known for not being well off. Dallas is pretty well known for having,
sure. Yeah,
so you're having these same concepts, right, of where you grew up. Now that you're doing this work that you're doing, Marcus, coming from where you came from, do you see a change? I want to know in yourself more of where you came from here in Houston to where you are in Dallas and the work that you're doing. Where did you see your growth as a Black man to step into the conversations that you're having that maybe you didn't have when you were a teen, and we were all just being silly and dumb and had no clue?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's one that I ponder quite a bit. When you're in this work, it's such difficult work. You get so much hate coming at you, and it's exhausting. And so you have to figure out, like, why am I doing this, right? Like, what's keeping me moving forward? And I think it's really my upbringing and my experience that actually puts me in a very strategic position to actually do this work. And I've had mentors that kind of keep me thinking about that, right? Like, I did grow up in places where whiteness was king, and had to exist in such a way that people could see me as one of their tribe, and even erase my blackness enough that they could say the horrific racist thing that they had been thinking, and then I could jump on that to help them see what they just said, right? I think, growing up and where we grew up, I struggled back between the identity of my culture and the identity of my class. And I remember
That's interesting.
Yeah. The pinnacle point, I think, in my life was when my dad kind of watching this. When I was with my black friends, I would dress and speak a certain way. White friends dress and speak a certain way. Definitely code switching back and forth, but not in the kind of way in which I knew that I was code switching or intentionally doing it. But it was happening just naturally. He said, "Marcus," he said, that's you're going to get exhausted. He said, you have to not, he said, your culture is always going to let you down. And your class system is always going to let you down. He said, your family is going to let you down. He said, but the only thing that will not let you down is Jesus Christ. He's not going to let you down.
Amen. Yeah.
So if you center yourself, if you center your identity on Jesus Christ, then you will always have a solid ground to stand upon. And what that meant for me is that it meant I could kind of do whatever Marcus wanted to do. I didn't have to live into what the expectations were of class or my culture, but Marcus, right? And so in the midst of that, little things like swimming, right? Like, black people don't swim. That was the stereotype. But Marcus liked to swim. And because I
swam in my pool, actually.
I went swimming in the pool. And look,
you did.
I had a couple pool records around the flying area for a long time as a black male, right?
That's cool. I had no idea.
And then going through the high school with you guys, there's a part of it that you do to survive, but I understood how to do that. I wasn't as awake as I am now, if you will, to use that word. I saw it and I experienced it, but I didn't know how to articulate it, and I felt things about it. Like, I had a coach once say to me in a locker room, "You're a credit to your race," right? I had a girl to date who was white, whose parents, she's at my church, whose parents said they would disown her, right, if she dated me, right? Like, you probably don't even remember this, but I was the first African American student or senior class president at the school, and I was the first president to not get to speak at graduation. So.
Wait, do you think that's because you're African American?
Yeah, absolutely. And for a while, I kid myself about it.
Are you serious?
Well, here's what happened, Liv. Like, and again, this is one of those things that people didn't know.
I had no idea about that.
You had already been gone.
I graduated. Yeah.
Everybody knew that the president speaks.
Yeah, always.
That's what they do. In fact, our sponsors said it. That's part of when you took the job. Everything. Hey, are you okay speaking in front of people? This is going to be your job.
You're like, give me the mic.
Yeah, right. So, but getting closer to graduation, all of a sudden, the principal calls all the officers into her office, and she says, "Hey, it's not gonna be, that the president just gets to speak. Now we're going to draw for it." And so what she does is she takes some of us into her office first, and she has a hat that has names or has the little thing that says, speak at graduation, whatever. And so I go in the first group, and we pull out things, and I didn't get it. Then the second group goes in, pull out names, and somebody from that group gets it.
Wow.
And so there was a petition that kind of went around. Like, I was trying to figure it out. And again, Liv, this is me living in a system that had treated me very well for the most part. I had been very successful in. I had been a black man that I had one of the principals come to me and go, "You know what? If my daughter was your age, I would have no problem having her date you," right? Like, this is the kind of black man that I had become. And yet in the end of it, as I was leaving, they showed me that I was the kind of black man they didn't want, right? And
You're
that's
still a black man. They wanted to make sure you knew that.
They want to make sure I knew that, right? So,
wow.
And that kind of vaulted me in when I went to school. Like, I just wanted to get away from. I didn't want to be around. I didn't want to go to A&M or UT because that's where everybody was going. I wanted to get away. And
sure.
So I chose the overpriced private school up in Fort Worth, right?
You really stuck it to them, Marcus. You really showed them.
I showed them. Showed those guys. But when I got there, I kind of dug into all like blackness, like black fraternity, black friendships, everything. But then God realized that he kind of was like, I can't have you there, man. I need you to make the bridge. And so being in the creative space, you were always around people who were different, lots of nationalities
Right.
and races. And so
Sure.
and that's what I loved, right? I wasn't born to just be in a particular space. So I didn't want to marry a white girl because that was a whole other thing, but I did. And now I have two biracial kids. And like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell people all the time, they're the people that keep me in the fight because there's many days that I want to come home and I just want to retreat into blackness. I just want to run into it and never see white people again. But I come home and there's one waiting for me.
There's a hot one waiting for you.
Yeah, yeah. And I love her, and I love her, and God
I know
has
you do.
created,
Right.
That. And so I know that that's what pushes me in. And so all those experiences have really played a part to position me, I think, to have the conversation well, because the people who I'm most battling tend to be white. And they are people who I love, who I have lots of relationships that I love dearly, who have treated me well, and who have stood up for me in many times. And so it's hard to separate and go, I can't talk to these people because they're white, because I have deep relationships with them, which is what I tell people, right? You can't hate what you love. And so if you
can't hate what you love.
Yeah. If we had more, so you and I were sitting here right now and we're laughing and we're having a good time. And I told you, before, like I'm having like a good friend of mine from who we grew up with, Lance Dillard, who we're going to go vacation with here pretty soon. I have a kinship with several people of different cultures and races, right? I was just on a call yesterday with some friends of mine, Latino, Asian, Indian, right? Like, we just laugh. My roommate in college was Indian. He was still one of my dearest friends. I got some kinship with people who don't look like me. And I use that word kinship in that they are family.
I love that.
God calls us to be one, right? And for the church to actually represent this otherness, this return to the original way in which humanity related to one another, which is in a perfect relationship with one another. And it's not the human itself that helps people see the image of God, but it's humans in perfect relationship with others that models and mirrors the truth of who God is, because God, as a triune God, Father, Son, and Spirit, is a perfect representation of relationship. And so when Adam and Eve were created, it wasn't good until they were both there and they lived in perfect relationship. And so sin came in and destroyed all of that. And so now you see all the stuff you see in the news where people's relationships are broken. Individuals create groups, and groups are in relationships that don't work, and groups create political parties that aren't in a relationship, and you get all this disrelationship and this unfamiliness, if you will. And God then created a new family in creating Christians that come under the banner of Christ, that create a new family that's a kinship that is supposed to remind people of the original relationship God created when he created Adam and Eve. We are supposed to live into that. And if we do, we will see, as Revelation shows us, we will see a kinship and a family that will be made up of all tribes and tongues and ethnic groups, which is what Revelation 7, 9, and 10 tells us. And so all that to say is I seek to have kinship with people who are different than me, because when I have a kinship and a family with them, then the things that happen to them are happening to me, right? Your people become my people, right? And I care about it because I see their face in the people who are being oppressed. So when the people who called me in the last week, they didn't see George Floyd's face. They saw Marcus Lloyd's face. And they were like, "Oh my gosh, that could be Marcus Lloyd.
That could be Marcus." Yes.
And now I'm mad about this.
How do I help?
What do I do? How do I help? Right.
Right.
And it's only because we had that kinship, right? And it's beyond just that we're friends and we live on the same street. I had a Facebook encounter with somebody on my street the other day who said racism isn't a thing until you make it a thing. And I'm like, I've eaten in your home before. Like I've played with your kids. I've babysat your kids, and this so you can have a black friend and not understand. Right? Like you can do it. And because you don't have a kinship, you don't actually see them as part of your tribe, if you will. So I don't know where this preaching that I just gave you started from, but
I'm not listen.
It was a preaching.
I love the Holy Spirit. No, it needs to be said, because here's the thing, it's happening right now, right? And like I said, this is not new. This isn't brand new. Racism didn't just show up. And guess what? sadly, this is not going to be the last conversation about it or the last horrific thing that happens, not just in this country. This isn't just an American problem. This is a world problem.
Right.
And so I think it's really important. I think that's part of why we have emotions and passion, because we need it to fuel to say the brave things and to do the brave things. And I think that it's fantastic that you're saying them, because I'm hoping people are listening. And I'm also hoping that there's no one on any side of this coin that's like, well, I'm done learning. Like, I know all the things.
Yeah.
We don't.
Right.
I don't think you know all the things as a Black man. And I know I don't know all the things as a white woman.
Yeah.
And I never will. It's just not going to happen. So I think it's a continuous dialogue, just like the relationship with Christ has to be continuous. I am never going to know him fully until I get to heaven. So I think this is great. I appreciate the preaching.
Well, you're right. I'm continually learning and continuing to ask God to show me, what to see. And it's interesting. I was actually, even this morning, as I was kind of thinking and praying about, again, I don't know when people are listening to this, but the hot news this morning is 45, our president has tweeted that about the looters
I know.
in Minneapolis. And he was saying, he was quoting an old Miami was notorious supporting sort of police brutality and stop and frisk and all these things. He was quoting this guy when he said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. And so basically it was a threat to the looters that if you don't stop, we're going to come in there with guns and I guess shoot you, right? And this was something that Twitter stopped, and it's becoming a thing, right? But
sure.
It really was interesting to me because I started just thinking through all the events of the past couple of weeks, and I've said many times to people, when people have used the phrase "Make America Great Again," I've told people that brings a lot of discomfort and it's a very disconcerting phrase for African Americans.
You hear that differently.
I hear it very differently, and people wouldn't understand. Like, that's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying. We're not trying to go back to the past and do what happened in the past. We're not saying that. And yet we can think of the images that have happened over the last couple of weeks. We can see that we have, an African-American male, a Black man who is shot in the street by an unarmed Black male, shot in the street by 3 white men for, exploring a construction site. We have a Black woman, Breonna Taylor, who's shot in her home because police barged in thinking it was a different home. We have this Black man that we've been talking about, George Floyd, who is basically choked out and killed by police in front of a protesting crowd. We have Christian Cooper, who is in Central Park birding, and we have a woman, Amy Cooper, who uses his Blackness to threaten to bring police violent response upon him. We have Black people rioting in the streets. We have tear gas. We have looting. We have burning cities. And we have a president who's saying if the looting continues, the shooting will start, right? These are all images from our America's past, right? And so the issue and the thing that I was really looking at, that phrase, "Make America Great Again," I think that phrase could actually work in this way. Is what was great about America back then is when these things started happening is that there were Americans who stood up and they used their privilege to stand between those who were oppressed and those who were oppressed. They locked arms with them. They locked arms with their brothers and sisters. They said, "I've had all I can stand. I can't stand no more, and I'm going to do something about this." And so my plea is that these great Americans would show up again, and that they would do these great things, and that we would truly see us making America great again in that way. And that's what we need right now.
I think that's a really incredible point. And here I couldn't help but think, I want to bring you back to where this conversation started, back to LA.
Sure.
And when you were, I think I forgot to ask, or I didn't get it from you. How old were you when you moved away?
You asked, I just didn't answer.
I was trying to be polite.
I was.
Thanks again, Marcus.
I think when we made that decision, I was like 25 years old.
All right. So you're 25, right? You're in your early 20s and you make this decision to leave LA. If I had said to you, Marcus, true success for you, my friend, is going to be being a pastor in Dallas, and you're going to be focusing on healing race relations, or like a lot of our other friends who have gone on to become really famous actors, like y'all, like legit famous, okay? Like not kind of like, oh, they were in like, you know, Third Guy to the Left.
They're not like my famous. They're like legit famous, right? Yeah.
Listen, you're famous in my book.
People are like, oh, I can find you on IMDb. You're famous. I was like, that's not quite what that means. But
listen, own it. You have IMDb. You know I would have my face on a card with my IMDb on it, handing it out to everyone if I had done that. So you're famous. But our friends who have really made it, more than one of our friends who have made it very big. And if I said, but your success is going to be here, what would you have thought at 25 with that word success between where you were in LA and where you are right now with the knowledge that you have as the man that you are today?
Yeah, look, truth be told, I ponder that term daily because of the ways in which you just articulated. I think when I was 25, if you had told me that, it's funny, I probably should listen to my 25-year-old self, right? I think in that moment, I would have gone, that's kind of why I'm leaving LA, is that I want to do more. I want to be more than this. I want to be more than, I want what I'm doing to last more than just my next picture or my next TV show, right? Because that's the thing you realize when you're in LA, you're only as good as your last project.
That's right. And then you're a nothing again. Yeah.
And exactly. And look, I remember probably my second audition in LA, I'm there. And again, you're looking for all these black guys. I'm sitting next to Bud from the Cosby Show, right?
Bud?
And I'm just like, wait, I just got here. This dude. Well, but this dude was on the most popular show that America ever had, and I've been in LA a week and a half, and we're at the same.
Y'all are
audition,
now equal,
right? Like
right.
So that's also one of the things. So I think, and this was funny, I'm glad you're saying it because it actually is helping me even in my 40-plus-year-old self. I think when I left LA, it was because I wanted to be more. I wanted to do more. But as you go and you start to do the things that you think you're doing, it never works, or at least for me, it wasn't panning out the way that I wanted it to. I still had this desire to want to use these creative gifts. I still wanted to be famous. I still wanted to. And part of it is because, one of the guys we're talking about is a good friend of mine. I'm watching him like, wait, what? Wait a second.
Yeah, he's killing it right now.
He's killing it. And wait,
he is killing it.
Wasn't he my sidekick in high school? Like, wasn't he? Like, how is this happening? So
I validate that. He was your sidekick. I validate that.
Well, he laughs about that, right? Because it was, he knows it true, right? And
I love it.
But what's so fun is again, I get to watch that and I get to experience that and see it. And he would tell you, like, there's things about what he's experiencing that he doesn't love to have to do. He doesn't love being away from his kids for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't love that he is only rated on his last performance. That's stressful, right? And yet I still see what he's doing as a success because he's doing what he feels he needs to do. For me, God is asking me to do something else. And so for me, the success is, am I living into what God has prepared me for and what he's asked me to do and what he's given me the gifts to do? And again, that doesn't look the same for everybody. And if God had asked me to do what the actors are doing, then I would have been successful there too, I think.
Sure. No doubt.
It's when I turn away from the thing that I think God has put me here to do, to go do something that I want to do, is where I think I would not be successful. So for me, I struggle with desiring to go away from success to go towards the stereotype of success, because success actually gets more credibility in society. And that success is more lucrative and all those other things that we idolize, which is, sinful and covet. And so really it's constantly having to be reminded by friends and family and even time of the word of what God really sees as success. And the only reason I'm still here, Olivia, and Liv, sorry, I just went back.
No, you can say Olivia.
You can say it. It's fine.
You're the worst. God, I miss you. I need you in my life to humble me, Markus.
There you go. Right. Exactly. I don't even know what I was saying. Think about it. But I think
success.
The only reason I'm still here, I think, is I say it all the time, is as a person who believes in Christ and follows Christ, if it was all about getting to know God better, it was all about getting to know my brothers and sisters in Christ better by being in the same room with them, I could do that in heaven, right? Like God could have just zapped me up and I would have been there. The
Sure.
reason I'm here, and the only reason I'm still here, is to do the thing that I won't be able to do there, and that's to point people towards Christ.
Oh,
So,
that's
you
interesting.
know,
The one thing you can't do
the one
there.
thing I can't do in
Wow.
heaven is point people towards Christ. And so,
Yeah.
how is everything in my life working towards that mission and vision? And then, you know, what my mentor would say, thinking about mission, where does the world's greatest need and your greatest passion sort of align? And then with me, I would add on to that, and what has God gifted you with in that, right? And so I feel like God has put me in a place that makes a lot of sense, although many days it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's
You know,
fair.
I trust it, and I have to keep leaning into it. And I need people who remind me of that, because I do want to walk away lots of times. And you know,
I'm sure you
the
do.
last couple of days have been those. But I have great again tribe and kinship with people who get behind me and keep pushing me and keep challenging me. But yeah, and I have to be reminded that doing the will of God and living into what God has asked me to do is the true definition of success for me.
That's
And
right.
so
Yeah.
right now,
You're living your truth.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, and, you know, just as a little point, what is interesting though, Marcus, is that what you're doing on this planet today, it will stay, and you can continue to point people towards Christ even when you're not here, because those of us, I'm assuming you're going to die before me. Do you like how this scenario is going?
For lots of different ways, I will probably die before you. Yes, I can name at least 3 reasons why that will happen.
Oh, Marcus. Oh, yeah, and COVID is out there right now. This is a really difficult time. Jeez, if any of us make it out of the Hunger Games right now, it'll be amazing, because I'm pretty sure that's what we're doing. But you will be remembered for all the things that you did do, and I think that's a legacy more than your filmography on your IMDb. You know, just having one more thing, and I think that that's great. I really do. Okay, let me ask you to wrap up, Marcus, and this conversation has been so fantastic, and God is so amazingly wonderful. Let me ask you, when you were in LA, to bring you back one more time, you're 25. I am guessing that this thought of leaving LA wasn't like you woke up and you're like, Lisa, guess what? Let's leave. I'm pretty sure that was something that was pulling at you, tugging at you, aching in your heart for a while, because that's a pretty big decision, especially coming from where we did. The talent that was at our school, the talent that was rising at the time that you were out in LA. So to make that choice, what had to quiet down in your life for you to hear God's voice? What had to chill out and quiet for you to actually hear it and step into it?
You know, we had gotten really connected to a church there in LA, and I think if I was to put it, I think we had to kind of at first in LA we got there and we were hanging out with, you know, friends that we knew who were actors and all those kinds of things. I think if there's something that had to quiet in us, I think we had to kind of build some relationships with people who love Jesus, and people who again weren't in the industry, that could kind of help us to see, like, to live almost like a real life in the city. Um, and so that quieted our, you know, we realized, oh, you can be a married couple, you can live a life that is great, and it doesn't have to be all surrounded by the industry and who's your friends and how famous are you and all that. Because you can live that way. And there was such a calm and like peacefulness when we would hang out with friends who again weren't in the industry, and we go, gosh, this is really nice. And we would hear about the ways in which they're wanting to raise their kids and the things that they were thinking about their marriage and how they were working on it. And yeah, I think it just opened up our minds to the thought of life doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be the as you know, as they say out there, it doesn't have to be a la la land, you know, life. And so that's probably what it was just building relationships with people who, in some ways, were it feels weird to say this, but we're living in a diverse experience of the city we were living in, and who had a deep faith in Christ. And so that's probably what, and even part of again a community that continued to reaffirm that. Yeah, I think that's probably what it was. That's an interesting question.
No, I love it. So I hear you. I hear that really what had to quiet down in your life were the voices telling you the opposite of
Right. Like this is success. This is the only way it looks like this way, or you're not anything.
Right.
And
the industry voices
kind of,
had to quiet down in order for you to hear the godly voices, maybe.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Use that. That's what I said. That's what I said. I like it.
You're so profound.
Write it down.
That's what you.
I'm tweeting it right now. I'm tweeting it, and it's mine.
Take it. It's yours. I probably owe you something. I feel like I probably took enough from you in high school. So there you go. Now I don't know.
Whatever.
This has been so fantastic. Also, the longest podcast ever. It's supposed to be a 30-minute show. So, what was I thinking, Marcus? When have you and I ever done anything together for 30 minutes?
I was thinking, I was like, I don't know what she's talking about.
That
like,
was
it's not gonna happen.
Big mistake on my part. I'm not. Yeah. Oh, I loved it. This conversation was awesome. Friend, I can't thank you enough for reconnecting with me and for the work that you're doing. Yeah. You're inspiring me, and I know you're inspiring so many others, so don't stop. And I am definitely here in whatever capacity I can do. I will be there. I love you tremendously. I might love your wife more, but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing outside the bedroom window here pretty soon again. So
I know.
If I need anything, I know where to find you.
Oh, you're great. Thank you so much. Give hugs and kisses to everybody. And
Thank you.
And if I ever get to do this again with you, please come back. I love you big.
Oh, of course. You know I love you.
Oh, you know what?
Anything for living.
Thanks, Marcus. Wait, real quick. Where can people find you, actually? I'm just assuming everybody knows you. Everybody's stalking the Lloyds. I mean, duh. Yeah. Where can they find you?
That's right. Yeah, obviously, you can check out, social media. You got me on Instagram and Twitter as the Marcus Lloyd. And then I'm the Marcus Lloyd.
And I'm the Liv Harrison. Oh, look at that. Look at you. It's a Klein thing.
Yes.
The Marcus Lloyd with a K. Marcus with a K.
With a K, that's right. On Facebook as well. And then just Marcus Lloyd on Facebook.
Okay.
Our organization Threaded is wearethreaded.org. You can check that out. And I've got a podcast as well that's called Colored Commentary. That is coloredcommentary.org. You can find those episodes as well. So, yeah.
Lots of good stuff. All right, friend. All right. I love you so much. Thank you so much, Marcus. We'll talk soon. Bye.
We'll see. Bye.
Well, thank you so much for listening to Talk to Me with Liv Harrison, the stories behind their success. I am so excited that this podcast has launched, and I need your help. I need you to take a moment to subscribe. I need you to please share it on your social media platforms and with your friends and your colleagues and your kids, or maybe not your kids. And I need you to leave me a review and a rating, especially on Apple. As I build my audience these first few weeks, I really need your help. So if you enjoyed it, come back. Do that by subscribing, by sharing, by passing the word around. And until then, I'll be listening for you. Okay, fine. You'll be waiting to hear from me. Bye, you guys. See you next time.